How old are your little ones?
8 and 4.
Oh, but they're getting close to the age where they can pour
Make
their own cereal, right?
The 8-year-old can do his own cereal.
Yeah, that's a wonderful age when they can actually do their own stuff, make their own sandwiches.
Oh, yeah. Soon, hopefully.
I like that soon. Please.
The day when he got old enough to get me the TV remote was the best day of my life. Like,
you can send them.
And I'd be like, pass me the remote. I was like, this is a threshold. It's a milestone. We're having a party for this.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so excited we could make it work because I think you're busy.
Yes.
And trying to get you was like, but introduce yourself. Tell me, how would you introduce yourself?
Oh dear. Well, Camille Dundas. You know what? I do a lot of things, but mainly my main focus is in helping people understand what their focus is in life and not limiting themselves to the box that they've been grown accustomed to being in. So if you're, working a 9 to 5, but you have a really big, deep passion for fashion, you don't have to hide that. You can do both, and I help people find their sweet spot in between those two spaces, and how to use social media to let people know what that sweet spot is.
What is your sweet spot?
My sweet spot is absolutely in storytelling. So whatever I do in life, whatever job I have, whatever project I work on, at the end of the day, it's always about telling stories. That's what I love. So I've been lucky enough to been able to weave that into everything I've done. So my first phase of my career was, I always knew I wanted to be a journalist from really, really young. I mean, I was like, Christian Amanpour, that was, my mom kind of beat that into my head. She was like, you're gonna be Christian Amanpour. I'm like, okay, Mom. And so I went to journalism school. I got working in television straight out of school. My dream job right away, loved it. I did that for 10 years, working in mainstream TV as a news writer, a news producer, working on air, behind the scenes, etc. Loved that. And then got more into thinking about how the Black Canadian community is covered in the media. And so my husband and I launched an online magazine called byblacks.com. That was 7 years ago. And in that time, we've grown to become Canada's #1 Black online magazine. So we're super proud of how we've been able to grow it. And then I made a shift, leaving mainstream media to work in technology. And so now I work at one of the leading social media management platforms in the world. And I help some of our customers understand how to tell their stories through social media. And so continuing with my passion, working with entrepreneurs and especially women, now I get to go out and talk to women about how to leverage social media to boost their personal brand and boost any business that they're trying to build while being a mom, while working a 9 to 5.
So you said that you knew you wanted to be a journalist from when you were this high.
Yeah.
Why? What was it about journalism that you found attractive?
At first, when I was really young, 6, 7, 8, as far as I can remember, first I wanted to be a writer. I thought I wanted to do books, be an author. And it was just being in school and being in the library period where the librarian comes and reads to everyone, and looking around and seeing how bored most of my classmates were, and I was riveted, completely riveted. Whatever page she turned, I was waiting for the next word. I devoured it. I skipped ahead all of the spelling books. I just ate all that stuff up. And books, stories became my safe place. It was where I could, forget about the world and just fall into all of those stories. My favorite growing up was the Choose Your Own Adventure books. I used to get those from the library and really delve into and pretend I was in the story. I absolutely loved it. And I was like, wow, okay. Then I started realizing that words have power beyond fictional stories. I grew up in St. Lucia. And with my dad, we developed this little routine on the weekend, and he loved to read the newspapers. He would gather about 4 newspapers, and we would read them cover to cover on the floor, our hands covered in ink all day, just reading. And one time I saw on one of these newspapers, one of the mottos was, or slogans rather, was, "The pen is mightier than the sword." And I was like, wow, what does that mean? Okay, that means that these words have power, right? And these words have the power to change people or to break people. What do I want to do with my words? And so I realized then that, I could have maybe more of an impact telling real stories. And so that's what I followed.
And so what was your path into journalism?
Well, growing up in St. Lucia, strangely enough, I lived a stone's throw away from the major television news station. This is complete coincidence, okay? And so I was 17 years old, and my friend and I, we used to watch this show. It was like a music show aimed at teens, right? It's called Video Vibes or something like that. And we're like, man, we could do so much better. Like, we could host this show, man. Like, we could do this, right? I'm like, yeah, we could totally do this. Let's write a letter. So we write this letter to the station manager, whoever. I drop it off, because I just walk there and I drop it off. And lo and behold, they actually reply. And they're like, sure, come do it. We're not going to pay you, but come do it. We're like, of course we'll do it. So over this summer, we shoot like 20-something episodes of this. Their viewership goes through the roof, because it's like 2 girls just having fun, interviewing people, artists, musicians, people our age, and just having a great time. And I was like, wow, okay, this is what I want to do. And that's when I got to see the editing process. And then for the first time, I saw how a newscast was put together. So I was in the control room in the dark, and I remember them doing the countdown to go on air. And honestly, it was like a NASA countdown to me. Honest to God, I was like, oh my God, this is exhilarating. I want to live here. And that was my place. I'm like, I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life. So that's where I first really got immersed in it. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do.
That's so interesting that, first of all, we have a similarity in that my dad was very much, for me, who inspired my love of story and reading and all of that, that your dad was. And what was it for him that, had he been in journalism?
No, so my dad was just a reader. He loved to consume news. But my mom is really the storyteller of our family. So, and she was the one, in a way, I feel like, I am, in a way, like her living out maybe part of her dreams in a way. When she was in university, she and my dad kind of married young, and he promised her that they'd finish school, everything would be great. But her second year in McGill, she got pregnant and didn't finish her degree. And everyone was always telling her, "Oh, you should be in radio. You're such a great storyteller." And so she never really got to finish that and really pursue that. And I think that she saw that in me and was like, you know what, you can do this. And so she would always push me and be like, no, go ahead and do journalism. When other people were like, that doesn't make money. My sister was a lawyer, and everyone's like, oh, you should be a lawyer, and I was like, I'm not gonna do that. But both her and my dad they would never discourage me from pursuing my dream. And I really, really appreciate that, because I know there are so many parents, so many kids who have an artistic or more, humanities interests, and a lot of parents steer them away from that. But my parents and my whole family always stuck by me.
And so you have this taste of what journalism is. How did then that actually turn into becoming a career?
Yeah.
A hugely successful career.
Well, thank you. So then I returned to Canada, and at age 21, went to Carleton University journalism school, and just went through it there. And right at the gates, I got a great opportunity to start at the CBC, and that was my first gig, being on air right out of school, and then being able to experience producing as well. And then I came to Toronto in 2008 after the Great Recession, and a lot of us got laid off, and came to Toronto and started all over again. And I was like, okay, all right, we can do this. And so I was got an apartment, was teaching English online to businessmen in Saudi Arabia. So doing that from midnight to 3 o'clock in the morning to pay my rent. And then I would sleep for a bit, wake up at 9, and then go to an unpaid internship at City TV, just to get my foot in the door, get back in there, right? Did that for about a year, and then did that like half day and then go home, meet up with my friends who are videographers, go out and like try to shoot my demo reel, like try to muscle my way into interviews and fashion shows and places where I didn't have credentials to be in. So, you know, was like getting elbowed by people like Jeannie Becker on the fashion runways while I was just like a 20-something-year-old trying to pretend like I actually belonged there. So that was fun. And then, yeah, just through the connections I made at that internship though, I never applied for a job ever again. And it was women, mainly Black women, who pushed me, who saw something in me. I was like, no, I'm gonna help you. And they kept recommending me. And I just kept getting more contracts from there, so.
What would you advise to someone who's a young person who's looking at the career that you had and wanting to get their foot in the door?
Yeah, I'll pass on the best advice that somebody gave me, and it was to do the small things well. And what that meant is, you know, straight out the gate, you know, I knew I was talented. I knew like, you know, I had what it takes to make it, but I wanted it right away. And so when I got my first job, I was like, no, I can do this. But they're like, no, just do this right now. And I was really frustrated with that. I was very impatient with that. And so I would skip over like the smaller tasks that needed to be handled because I wanted to do the bigger things. But you have to do the small things first for people to trust you to do the bigger things.
What was your greatest learning from your journalism career, or that piece of your career?
Yeah, I would say, my greatest learning was to show up and always show out. Somebody also gave me some great advice when I was in a very low period. During that first job as well is also when I found out surreptitiously that I was a diversity hire. So nothing wrong with diversity hires, but here's the thing no one told me. So people were making little comments like, oh, like, you know, like you're here because of that program, right? And I was confused. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I found out just by chance, just by seeing my name on a list and seeing an acronym next to my name. And so I Googled it and figured out, okay, this is the program that I'm on. I didn't realize this. Okay. And then I started to doubt myself. I started to feel like, am I here because I was the best person, or am I here because I was the best Black person? And so I went to one of my former profs and I was like, what do? I feel like they just brought me here to fill some kind of number. And he's like, that program may have been your foot in the door, but it sure as hell is not the reason you're here. You better stop moping around, go back to that newsroom and show up. And every time I doubt myself, I remember that: show up. Just do the work and people will see what you're made of. They will trust you and they will support you.
So you spent a lot of time in newsrooms and in mainstream media. And then what was it that made you decide your time there was done and you wanted to move on to something else?
Oh, tricky one. You know what? And I'll say this carefully, but I think that my friends who are still working in media would also agree with this, that the mainstream media machine is moving way too slowly to keep up with how media in general is evolving. And so I was brimming with ideas and I felt like I had so much to offer, but things were just moving way too slowly. And so what I found in the technology sector was an atmosphere of grit, an atmosphere of, you have an awesome idea? Okay, you're not a VP, doesn't matter who you are, but we can take that idea and we can make it into something. An opportunity to get your ideas heard and see them actually played out, right? And so that was one of the main reasons why the moving to tech was so attractive to me.
Did you always have what was your vision? So you wanted to be a journalist. Did you have a vision of, this is where I want to end up in journalism?
You know what's funny? Even though I was a bit frustrated right before I left, I feel like I was happy to continue doing that for the rest of my life, with the idea that, maybe I'd one day have my own show, or I would have my own segment on a show or something like that. And so my vision was always like something bigger, and I think it still is, but now it's just on my own terms. And what we do with By Blacks is how I build and grow on my vision. Instead of trying to fit myself into a box that mainstream has created for me, I build my own box. And then I build more boxes. And then I build, entire buildings then hopefully one day that other people can then come and fit into, right? Or add to. So that's where I build on my vision with my husband and I, our media platform that we grow on together. Yeah.
So let's talk about. You have another, but let's talk about By Blacks.
Yeah.
Did you have the vision that you'd one day be an entrepreneur? Was that ever part of?
That is such a great question because I never saw myself as an entrepreneurial person. It wasn't something that was very prevalent in my family, even growing up. Like we're all very, like the examples that I had were very corporate examples. And so I just never even, I knew people, start business, but I never thought that was something for me. I was going to be a journalist, I was going to be in TV, I was going to, that's, you want to be Oprah, what a Christian Amanpour, right? That's the long and short of it. And to be honest, it was only until I was forced in 2008 when there were no jobs. And I was like, okay, I have to do something. So then I started a consulting agency. So I started doing media consulting. While I was doing the teaching, I was doing media consulting as well. Because I realized that, okay, there are a lot of people who want to get their stories told in the media, but they don't know how to pitch it. They don't know how to craft their message. So I started doing that. That was my first business. And then I'm like, oh, I'm a business person. All of a sudden, I'm like, hold on, I can do this, okay. But to be honest with you, my husband is the real visionary of our family. So the By Blacks was his idea and his vision. He came to me with it and was like, I think that Black businesses in Canada need a space where they can promote themselves. I'm like, okay, cool, let's do that. So we started off as a directory. And then a friend of ours said to us, well, you need to give people a reason to come back to this website. And he said, why don't you do stories on the businesses in the directory? And I was like, yes. And then it was just natural with my journalistic background that I would take over that side of the business. So I became the editor-in-chief and he became the publisher. So he deals with the business side, the ads, our clients, the actual integrity of the website, and I deal with everything editorial. So over the last 7 years, we've had well over 100 different contributors. And we have new articles every week, every month. So I liaise with the writers, I assign things, I find stories, connect with new writers across Canada, trying to get more outside of Ontario. So it's a huge endeavor, but we both are so passionate about it because we've seen what a gap it's filled in our community because we endeavored to do Black Canadian content only because we felt like Black Canadians, when looking for reflections of themselves, they're looking to the United States, which is awesome. They have amazing stories there. But we have so much here that we're not paying attention to. So that's why we wanted to focus only on Black Canadian content.
So I know within the Black community, so many people I know tell me how amazing it is and it's a great resource in terms of, like you say, finding stories that we don't normally hear. What's been the reaction outside of the Black community to this magazine that is called By Blacks?
Yeah, it's so interesting because, the name, there's no mistaking what it's about, right? And the name gets different reactions both from outside and inside the community too, okay? It strikes fear somehow into people, and I feel like it's also reflective of the climate in Canada, in that we have such difficulty talking about race. Like, people don't even want to say the word Black in polite company. So I've been in conversations where I'm the only Black person and we somehow get on topic of race and they'll refer to Black people as African Americans, Black Canadians. And I'm like, no, that's like an American identity, but they just don't want to say the word Black, right? And so I've been called a racist number of times online. I get, why don't you have white people on there too? Why do you need a magazine just for Black people? I don't know, it feels like reverse racism, which is not a thing. And so what I say is that, and then I also get, aren't you just doing the same thing? You're segregating yourself. I say, okay, cool, I get it, I understand, thank you. What I'm doing is helping to normalize Black success. Because I feel that for many white people, seeing a Black person in a position of authority or in a role of success is so outside of their everyday experience. And if you talk to any Black person living here or anywhere, they most likely have experienced a situation where they show up and people don't believe who they say they are, or they're like, oh, you actually don't belong here, but it's in a very subtle way, right? Either mistaking you for a helper or someone in a lower a position of authority, etc. I have 101 stories about that, okay? And so for us to show mainly Black people in positions of power and success, I think that it will help to normalize the idea of a person of color being able to be your doctor, be your lawyer, be a judge, and be the prime minister or whatever, right? Like, that's all we're trying to do. And it would be amazing if we didn't need it, for sure, absolutely. But guess what? We're not there. Okay? So until that day, we're going to keep on making sure that we have positive reflections of our community in the media.
What do you think it'll take for us to get to that day where it's a non-issue?
You know what? Here's the thing. There are people in Canada who have gone their entire lives until they maybe land a job in a big company where they have to work with people who are different than them, but they've gone their entire lives having never had a close relationship with a Black person, never having a close relationship with a person with a disability, with a queer person. And so we then put those two people on a desk to work together and think that everything's gonna work out, because we have these diversity and inclusion policies and we have training and everything's going to be fine. But until we name this, the fact that we are still quite segregated in terms of, how we interact with each other in some places. When you live in Toronto or Montreal, you get this idealized version of Canada, right? That Canada is so diverse, or we're a melting pot. We're known for being diverse. The major cities are diverse, but Canada is not diverse, right? And so again, you have people who grow up their whole lives not having these experiences. And so it's not necessarily, are there racist people in the world? Absolutely. But it's not necessarily that they are inherently racist. It's really that they do not know how to engage with somebody who lives differently than them, right? And as I've said before, this is why media portrayals are actually such an important part of the conversation. Because while the education system and our government, our policies and laws, et cetera, are important for how we treat each other, the media portrayals inform your perceptions. And your perception will inform your reality. And your reality informs your biases. And your biases will inform the types of relationships that you are willing to have with somebody who doesn't look like you. So it's a domino effect, right? So when people say, oh, it's just a book, it's just a movie, it's not just that. All of these things add up to inform our perceptions of each other. And so I think that more dialogue is what is going to get us to that place, hopefully one day. Promised land.
The promised land. It's so funny you say that, because I have a friend of mine, now she's now a really dear friend, but she grew up in Wales, in a small village where she'd never seen a Black person in real life until she went to university. And even at university, it was very much segregated.
Your bubbles.
And she was telling me how for her growing up, like all her years until she was 18 and went to university, all she ever seen on television about Black people was that they were criminals and gangs. And so that was she approached Black people from a place of fear. Because no fault of hers, that's all she'd ever seen. And it's so interesting that you say that how representation matters and the stories that we tell matters and how a platform like yours by Blacks is so important because it starts to normalize us being in positions of different positions and owning businesses. What's your vision for what you want by Blacks to be?
I see it as a mix between a media company and a tech company. And so we're strictly digital, and I believe we will remain that way. However, I have this vision of like a giant office with different divisions, with like news and entertainment and profiles, and being able to go to all of the top Black journalists that I know and being like, whatever they're paying you, I'm gonna double it, and now you're gonna work with us. Like, that is my ultimate goal, to have the best and the brightest from across Canada all contributing to show this amazing mosaic of lives, of people, of success stories that we have happening in Canada. Let me tell you, I never run out of content. Every day that I think, oh, what are we going to focus on next week? There's a new story coming up of someone doing something amazing with their lives.
And do you want By Blacks to stay Canadian, or do you ever see it expanding beyond the borders?
What's really awkward is that the brand has grown so much that I get a lot of interview requests from the US, and I have to politely decline them and explain that, the mandate is Canadian only. But we 100% had a vision from the beginning of having a By Blacks US, a By Blacks UK, a By Blacks Africa, and expanding worldwide, most definitely.
So that's in the works. That's
yes, that is a vision.
Okay, so that's By Blacks.
Yeah.
But you also have another business that you and your husband. Gosh, when do you and your husband sleep?
Oh man, never.
Tell me about that other business.
Yeah, so we have a publicity firm, marketing, called Convo Media, and it started off as a smaller company called 404 Media between my husband and I. 404 was the first tiny apartment that we moved in, that we lived in together, and so we named the business after that. And then we partnered with a couple of other amazing publicists and grew the business into something a bit bigger. And so now our main focus is on, I would say, outdoor festivals, artists, as well as a few entrepreneurs. So we help them gain publicity in the mainstream media.
And so what's that been like, growing that? How has it changed? So like you say, you started the business, it's you and your husband, 404, and then you expand into this bigger. How has it changed what the company is and what it does?
Yeah, it's, there's a lot more meetings now. So as opposed to my husband and I in the kitchen just talking about things. So I think it's really forced us to grow, because when it's just the two of you and you're just kind of bouncing off one another, there's so much that you miss. There's so much in your blind spot, I guess, that you miss. And so working with our other two amazing partners, Michelle and Wendy, they bring so much wealth to the table that it's helped us just to open our horizons to what's possible for the business.
So what would you advise? So if someone was to come to you and say, hey, I'm looking for to get recognition in the press. What's the first step? What are you looking for in a client?
Yeah, so when we're evaluating, we're looking to see, number one, what your story is. So most times you don't know your own story, and that's okay. That's where we help you get to. And so we ask a series of questions, of course, informed by all of our media backgrounds, and getting you to talk about what is the real motivation behind your business, because the media is not in the business of promoting your business. They're in the business of telling stories. So we're trying to get to, do you have a story that we can sell, that we can pitch? And so it's also evaluating how comfortable you are telling that story. Many people have amazing backgrounds and motivations for why they're doing what they're doing, but they're very uncomfortable talking about it, especially women. So
why is that?
Why
are we so uncomfortable with telling our stories?
I think women, we just have like a fear of vulnerability, because I think maybe we're innately a little more vulnerable. We feel that in order to compete with men, that we have to shut that off and be, like stoic and just be like, yes, this is my business and this is what we do. But all of us, men and women, everyone, we all have an emotional tie to the reason why we're in this. And that's what we want to get to. What wakes you up in the morning? Why are you dedicating your life to this specific business when you could just go and get a job, right? That's the story that we want the media to understand. They're invested in emotions and in stories.
Tell me, so we've talked about storytelling and stories. So how would you define storytelling? What is story?
Yeah, well, I mean, a good story has a beginning, middle, and end. And a good story is true. And it makes people either feel something or it makes them learn something. So I also apply that same advice to social media. So when people ask me like, what type of post, I said, evaluate your posts. They either should have an emotional impact or make people learn something. So are you teaching? Are you telling them something that they never understood or even heard about before? Or are you making them feel something? So keep those two things in mind. You'll always have a good story.
So talking about social media, because you also have yet another, I am tired just thinking about all the things you do. The other side of your life, tell me about that side that involves social media.
Well, I love doing workshops and speaking about how to leverage social media. So whenever I get called to a conference or to do a workshop for entrepreneurs or for women, whoever, I love getting into the nitty-gritty of it and showing people how far social can take you, and realizing like what type of posts are better than others, and how to tell your story on social media with so it's like micro storytelling, because social media there's a lot less time, right? Or storytelling through visuals. So there's a lot there, a lot untapped potential, I think, even though social media has taken over. It's everywhere. We use it for everything, but it's more than just likes and comments. So.
As a business, what are some things that you see that people should be doing that they're not doing to leverage social media to help grow their businesses?
Yeah, I think what's so funny is that what we're all ignoring, when suddenly we start a business, we do social media, and then suddenly we start a business, we're like, oh my God, what do I do? What do I post? As if you don't know how to use social media. Suddenly you are gripped by fear when it's your business brand, because it's not yours anymore, right? It's your business. And so you don't want to mess that up. But there's still an element of humanity that you have to bring to your business account. Your first step is deciding what is the voice of your business on social media. And then that will guide the types of posts that you do. So you have to decide, are you going to be a Wendy's who's critical, who's funny and critiques everyone and does pranks on social media? Is that going to be your voice? Or are you going to be a more corporate voice, or are you going to be a corporate voice that sometimes does jokes? You have to figure your voice out, your brand first before you jump ahead and start posting things. So I would say that's the first thing you need to find out. What is your voice?
What would you say if you had to define for By Blacks?
Yeah.
What's the By Blacks voice?
Yeah, the By Blacks voice is Black excellence. That is what we're about. We're about reflecting the everyday excellence that's all around us.
Okay, what's your voice? Because I know you post on social media, and I know you speak. That's actually how we met. I heard you speaking, and I was like, "Whoa, she's amazing."
Oh,
what would you say? Who do you want to be reflected in your social media? You
know what? People, for me, it's what you see is what you get, and people know that it's the realist, right? I always storytell, number one, so I only post on social when I have something to say or when I have a story to tell. So if you look on my LinkedIn, I don't post every day. I don't post every week even. When something happens, or I do a speaking event and I enjoyed it, I have something to say about it, I post it. On my Instagram, it's about my kids and about my life. And so people know that's what they're getting on my Insta feed. In fact, in my bio, it says, this is an Insta shrine to my children. That's it. If you want to talk to me about work, hit me up on LinkedIn. That's all. So it's again, what you see is what you get. I'm just very chill, very open about my life and about all the crazy things that my kids put me through. So it's straightforward, really. That's the voice.
What is that? What is home life like for you? Because you have this interesting scenario where your husband is your business partner, and then you also, how do you stop with that boundary of work life and then having a life?
So our calendar rules our life. That is the only way we survive. So we have a shared calendar in Google Drive, where we anything anything we have to talk about, anything that we have to do, like it is in the calendar. And if it is not in there, it is not going to happen. And so when like the other day, like I scheduled a 3-hour block and it didn't have anything in it. But I'm like, there are certain things that we're just forgetting to talk about, and we're going to talk about all of them in that 3-hour block. And so I have to block off time for us to discuss either the business, this business, that business, or personal, or the children. So most of the family, I do most of the family admin. So anything like the children, if I don't schedule in like drop off lunch at this time, he will forget. Like he will never remember to drop them off lunch, right? Like there has to be in there. And for myself too, if he wants me to do something, it has to be in the calendar. So that is the only way we actually survive, having these 2 children, the house, 2 businesses, other ventures. We both volunteer. We're both on boards that we're passionate about. And then we try to we've got 2 complimentary movie passes like stuck on the fridge for the past 6 weeks, I think. And we haven't even yet been able to actually go and see that movie, but it's gonna get in the calendar soon.
How did you 2 meet?
Oh, wow. So we met through a mutual friend. Shout out to my girl, Jasmine Lee. She is one of the leading real estate agents in all of Canada, but in another life, she would be a matchmaker. I swear to you. However, she introduced me to Roger for professional purposes. So she's like, you should network with this guy. He's really great. I'm like, okay, cool. So we met. I was waiting for him at Yonge and Dundas Square. He was late. I was standing there I went up to this guy. I'm like, excuse me, are you Roger? And he's like, no, but I could be. I'm like, okay, creepo. So I'm on the phone with my friend being like, this guy is 15 minutes late. Like, seriously. Then he arrives, smiling, nothing.
Like nothing.
Hey, whatever. And I'm like, okay, you're late. And then he's like, okay, let's go get something to eat. And so we went to a Caribbean spot right on Yonge Street. And the way he tells the story is that I ordered curry goat. And I was eating, and I was like, that is not true. I wasn't doing that. He exaggerates. But he said when he saw me eating, that's when he knew I would be his wife. Because he's like, this girl is just so real right now. She doesn't care. She's about this food. And what drew me to him, what I remember about that conversation is that he pulled out a notebook and a pen. And he looked at me and he said, what do you want for your life? And whatever I said, he was writing it down. And I was like, wow, he actually cares about what I say, I think. And he was really invested for some reason in me. And we just became inseparable. I moved in with him 6 weeks after knowing him. We got married less than a year after being together and had a house, a baby within less than 12 months. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an incredible story. This is the first time you met and he asked you,
yes,
what do you want
for your life? Yeah.
Wow. That's deep. What do you want for your life?
I think I want what everyone wants, and we want to be happy. We want to know that we made a difference. We want to know that we lived up to our childhood dreams.
Switching gears completely, there's no elegant way for me to do this dismount. I was trying, but you're so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
So beautiful. And you know what I love is the natural hair. Tell me about the journey to the natural hair.
Well, that is very interesting because that you called it a journey, because it was, especially starting off in the media business. When I first entered the media business, I felt like I had to look like every other girl that belonged in the newsroom. And so what I saw was, long hair and that's what you look like. That's what the anchors look like. That's what I gotta be. And so I spent lots of time and money on hair extensions.
Tell me you had that box with all the different packs of hair.
Oh yeah, and loads of money and time in the hairdresser. You would not catch me outside my house without my 22-inch weave, okay? It wasn't happening. And again, it was when I met my husband and he started challenging me. And he goes, one time he said to me, he's like, when are you gonna stop hurting yourself? And because he saw the pain I would be in after either relaxing my hair and getting burned or my hair being so tightly sewed in.
Where you literally feel like you had a facelift.
Okay. And the way he phrased it made me realize that it was a form of self-harm. And I thought, damn, I'm hurting myself to look a certain way. And then from that time I said, you know what? I'm not going to engage in any beauty practices that bring me pain. And that's when I cut my hair off. And it was both liberating and frightening. I think every girl who does a big chop will tell you they have the first like, wow, awesome, it feels so great. And then they go home and bawl. What did I do? Right? And so I had all of those moments, but it was a complete shift in confidence afterwards because I felt like there's nothing to hide behind. If I'm gonna deal with me, you're gonna have to deal with me. And that's how I started showing up in the world. Interestingly, now having children, my first child is a boy child. And last night, he says to me, you know, I wish you still had your long hair because I just want you to look more like a mom. And I was like, well, you know, there are different ways to look like a mom. And moms show up in all different shapes and sizes, you know? He's like, yeah, but you look like a boy now. And he goes, I just want you to look more like a mom. And this morning, after seeing the win from Miss South Africa winning Miss Universe, I showed him the video of her winning. And he turns to me and he goes, she kind of looks like you. I'm like, yeah, she does, right? He's like, yeah. And I just left it there. And what's disheartening about that is that as a parent, you think that leading by example is going to be enough until you realize how influential societal pressures and norms, the things that he sees when he goes to school, when he consumes media, he is seeing long hair as the norm for beautiful, right? And so I just naively thought that him seeing me with short hair would make him understand that you can be beautiful in all different ways. But I can only hope that, you know, I have these conversations with him, and as he grows, he'll look back on them and understand that you can grow in your thinking, and maybe he'll have more empathy for other people who have room to grow in their thinking.
Isn't that such a powerful thing that at that age, how much the outside world influences how we see the world?
Yeah.
And so, you know, back to your company and how for him, growing up in a world where he will see people, you know, Black people as CEOs and doctors and lawyers, and that will be the norm. So again, an incredible thing that you're doing with By Black. So
thank you.
Bravo to you.
Thank you.
Who are some people who inspire you and the work that you do?
Well, you know, I notice that when people get asked that question, they'll often, you know, pull up like, you know, past leaders and presidents, et cetera. And of course, all those people are truly inspirational. But I get inspired by the regular people that we cover. You know, the moms, the dads, the people who started a business from nothing and turned it into $1 million company. These are the types of people that inspire me every day, and I'm so excited to cover every day on By Black. So and you know, the thing is, the reason we were so passionate about this is because this was our reality. Our reality is that we are surrounded by people who are doing amazing things with their lives, but for some reason, their stories don't surface to the mainstream media. And so I take inspiration from those people all the time.
And what for you personally, not the company?
Sure.
What is your greatest dream for who you want to be in the world and the impact that you want to have in the world?
Yeah, I think that, you know, when I think about being my mom's unfulfilled dream, I think about being my dad's exceeded expectations, you know. I don't think that he, out of all the children, he thought that I would be able to go this far with it. You know, he encouraged me, but, you know, I have my brothers and my sister doing all these amazing things. And so I love exceeding expectations. And on the real side, though, while I want all these, you know, to be remembered as all these, you know, amazing things, I also recognize that we're all either, or at the same time, we're all heroes and villains in somebody's story. So I want to be remembered as somebody who allowed everybody else to tell their truth from their point of view.
That's beautiful. And aligned with your whole mission of storytelling, right?
Yep.
What are you most excited about right now?
Excited for the growth of By Blacks, most definitely. Right now, we are in our second year of doing the People's Choice Awards, which we love because it's an opportunity for the community to rally around their favorite personalities and business people, and they get to be promoted. We're growing the company as much as we can to get outside of Ontario, to get more across Canada, to touch on the types of topics that people aren't thinking about, like Black Indigenous Canadian history. We're very interested in topics like that, so we're always looking for new voices. I'm always excited to meet a new voice, someone with something unique and interesting to say that can contribute to the magazine.
And what are you most grateful for?
Oh, I'm grateful for, what I realized, I'm grateful for knowing my passion early in life. I think that a lot of people struggle with that and guilt themselves for that. And I'm very grateful to have known where my heart is really early in life because it has never led me astray.
So this platform is called Ndini, and I called it that because it's from my mother tongue, Shona, and it means I am.
Yes.
Because I believe in the power of whatever you say after I am, really shaping your destiny. So finish the sentence for me. I am.
I am a woman who has grown into having unshakable confidence in herself, unshakable confidence in the people that I surround myself with. But I am also a woman who is unfinished, who is a work in beautiful progress.
I love what you said about having unshakable confidence in yourself, but that it's been a journey. What's been the greatest challenge to you from a confidence perspective? Because you strike me and I see you out in the world and you're this force to be reckoned with. Like, what's been your greatest challenge that you've had to overcome to step into those shoes?
Yeah, I think that it is a feeling of belonging. And stepping into a room and your first instinct is to recoil because you feel that you don't belong in that room or you feel like you don't deserve to belong in that room. And so the way that I have dealt with that is in a similar way to dealing with a trauma. Often if you've experienced trauma, you'll have a flashback of the trauma. And so one of the amazing artists we covered on By Blacks, Emmanuel Jal, who suffered great trauma in his life as a child soldier. Something I took from the interview we did with him was that he says when he gets those flashbacks, he makes space for them. And he says, okay, you're here. Thank you for coming. He thanks it. And he says, okay. And then stays with the feeling and then moves along, as opposed to trying to push it down and reject it. And so when I get those feelings of imposter syndrome or those feelings of, no, you shouldn't be here, you don't belong here, I just thank it for showing up. And I remember where I came from. And I'm like, okay, this is why you're feeling this way. You came from there, but look where you are now. You belong here. Speak when you have something of value to contribute. Don't speak just for the sake of being heard because you want to appear like you belong, but add value where you know you can deliver value.
That's a really beautiful thing, what you just said, that making space for the feeling. Because I think for so many of us, we want to run away from the feeling. We don't want to face it. That's really I shall definitely keep that in mind. So do you do all, like, in terms of interviews, how do you find all the interviews? Do you do it through third parties or?
A lot of people pitch us, and I see a lot of, I get a lot of stuff from social media. I'm always scouring social media and looking at what people are posting and what they're doing, and I'll reach out being like, hey, this is a cool business. I like what you're doing, I want to know more about it. Or the writers will pitch us as well. So I'm always looking for people with new ideas, new connections. I can't be everywhere. So people who are connected to different industries, they'll come and pitch us and be like, hey, this person is really doing something cool. So from all over we get,
You're doing incredible work.
Thank you.
And I thank you for the work that you're doing to bring to the fore stories that we don't normally hear. And I think also not just bringing them to the fore, but also in you encouraging all of us to believe in the power of our own stories. Because I think so often we minimize ourselves, like, oh, I'm not interesting, I don't have a story, and yet
We all do.
Everybody has a story.
We all do.
Everyone has a story.
Yeah.
Where can people find you and find the amazing work that you're doing?
So it's byblacks, BYBLACKS.com. And that's our name on all social media. And to connect with me, it's CamilleDundas.com, or you can hit me up on Insta, Cam_Dundas. That's usually where I'm living.
You're incredible, and I'm so glad we could make this work, and
Thank you.
so grateful for your time. Thank you so much for the gift of your time, because I know you're insanely busy, and so you taking time out to spend time with me is so appreciated. Thank you for sharing your story, and as I said to you before, thank you for what you are doing to help so many of us share our stories.
Thank you. This is time well spent. Thank you so much.
You're awesome. Here's what I'd love to ask you as our community. So I want to know from you, who do you want me to have on the show? Who would you like me to interview? Who are some of the amazing women whose stories you would like for us to share on this platform? If you have any fantastic ideas, and even better, if you can connect me with them, please comment, leave your comment, or DM me and tell me who are some incredible stories I should be sharing on this platform. And the other ask that I have of you is for you to subscribe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on social media. We're on Instagram and Facebook, and share. Please share. If you find any of our interviews inspiring, please share them with your friends and family.